Hi, good morning, everyone. Today is a good day. Today is another chilly but cool and crisp day here in Minnesota. And it's kind of invigorating, actually, after I got out of bed and started to move and, just felt the chill in the house and kind of really woke me up. And I feel quite alive and ready for the day. So today I'd like to share some reflections, the second to the last chapter actually in the Artist's Way book, as we've been exploring the mindset and the practices of cultivating our creativity, our creative imagination, and just covering some key concepts in recovering autonomy, which certainly have been profound and created great insights for me in this past year, and I'd like to share them with all of you, and for the hope that they land in an inspiring way. And I hope that everybody is taking time. I have the book over here, that if these the gist of these lessons has been helpful, that maybe some of you have picked up the audiobook or have picked up the paper copy of the book and have been working through it. So one of the first things under autonomy is the acceptance of our creative process. Often, we're in our careers or our jobs where there's an official process, an SOP, if you will, on how things are done, or a job offers us, certain hours. And the key here is to recognize what our process is. What is our natural process? And so we might find, with regard to our creativity, that having a steady 9-to-5 job Monday through Friday actually frees us up to create more readily, because there are firm boundaries with work, and it gives us plenty of free time that we can count on. And some people may find that actually a 9-to-5 job kind of squelches their creativity. It's just too confining. And so we have to figure out what that is for ourselves, and try to the best. Once we become aware of what environment we need to support our creativity, then we need to start to take some actions to try to change that, or maybe massage that a little bit. If we do best in under 9-to-5, and our job is kind of free-flowing, well, for example, maybe we need to create some firm hours, even though clients or customers can come in anytime. We set some boundaries, like from 9 to 6. That's when I do my professional work, and if somebody wants to work with me outside of that, I refer them. So we can create our own structure if we need to. I remember I did this back when I was working in Plymouth, and I was going to business school, and I remember that I really I had 2 young kids at home, and I really needed time to study, so I just created a client schedule from 9 to 5, and that was the time that I was there, Monday through Friday, and I committed to that, and it was tremendously successful. Though, I could have taken people on at any time. By creating those firm boundaries, I created that structure I needed to be creative. So just being aware of what structure that helps spur our creativity, and then making those adjustments so that we can be supported in our creative endeavors. And then another Another concept that I shared, or I'd like to share, is this just this permission with our creativity to giving ourselves permission to do sometimes seemingly impractical or whimsical things simply because they inspire our creativity, or they're in some ways a muse for us. The author gives this example of, she talks about she might buy a bottle of perfume that she thinks doesn't smell very good, but the reason she buys it is because when she puts it on her desk, it reminds her of the bottle shape of perfume in the 1930s, and every time she looks at that bottle, she's able to write her screenplay about a story she's writing in the 1930s. And that really landed on me, that there are these scenes or objects that capture our imagination and our attention, and they allow us, every time we look at them, we're able to be creative. And I think of that, giving ourselves permission to, from time to time, purchase something or bring something into our home that is seemingly impractical, but it, for some reason, inspires us and gets our creative juices flowing, so that we can be more creative. And I certainly have that throughout even this office here. Different symbols up in this bookcase. I have a piece of pottery that inspires me every time I look at it. I have the cover of a book that I'm inspired to write, that just sits right there and inspires me to take action. I have a cutout of Lake Superior, cut out in iron, which inspires me to take actions with sea kayaking and creating retreats. So think about that. Like, what is that? Do you have objects around you that inspire you to be creative? And if you don't, perhaps think of ways that you could maybe start to open up to that, and bring those objects into your just ordinary spaces, and bring them alive and allow them to inspire you, either directly as you're looking at them, and they're motivating you as you look at them, or you just every time you pass by them, it kind of gives you this sense of inspiration. So just notice what that is, that could be for you, and opening up to the idea of bringing some of those inspirational objects into your life. So I see Darlene is here. Good morning, Darlene. I hope you're doing well. The next thing I'd like to discuss or explore here is what she calls in the book is the Zen of sports. And as I've done further study this past year, I realized this portion of the chapter on autonomy and the Zen of sports was really, at least as far as I can gather, was the compost or the fodder for what the author later titled artist's walks as one of the basic tools. So just as a refresher, the three basic tools, or the two basic tools in the book, and there's a third one that she later discovered, is morning pages. So 3 pages of longhand stream of consciousness writing every morning, like a writing meditation, just getting all that, sending out your intentions, helping yourself unblock negative thought patterns. She talks about kind of like a two-way receiver. You're sending out your intentions, you're unblocking with the writing. And then there's the artist date, taking your pre-planned time where you go out for, a couple hours to do something inspirational every week to fill the well of your creativity. It's kind of like a antenna, a receiving antenna. The morning pages are a sending antenna. The artist dates are a receiving antenna. And then the last piece is an artist walk. And in this chapter is where she first starts to describe the importance of exercise for creativity. And she gives a warning to people who are only practicing mind-body, like seated meditation that is not tied to some kind of movement practice, because with regard to our creativity, it can leave us what she says is kind of blissed out. We're feeling high, we're feeling peaceful, but we're unable to take actions in our world, creative actions in our world, to bring our creative inspirations into reality. So that's where the artist walk comes in. Now, it doesn't have to just be an artist walk. I mean, this could be bringing intention to our Tai Chi practice. I've done this with my Aikido practice, martial arts practice. So it can be done with a number of things, but it's all about the intention you bring to the movement. In other words, you're like in the meditation, you're reminding yourself for the sake of what that you're doing it. Then you move, and then you remind yourself why you did that. And what that can do is it neurologically helps you tie the intention, the creative intention, to the behavior of movement. And that's what starts to move us into bigger actions, like starting to make plans and goals and objectives and sketching out tasks. Those bigger movements that help bring actual inspirational ideas into reality. And having this creative intention tied to a movement like just simply walking is a great way to start that process of inspiration into action. So, she talks about that at length, about the importance of exercise. It doesn't have to be really intense exercise for creativity, but simple walking. It also teaches us the rewards of process. Exercise does. And exercise, anybody that's set an exercise goal, realizes if you want to lose 30 pounds, that 30 pounds, you aren't going to lose it after 3 workouts. It's going to be a process over a series of weeks, and it's a commitment to the process that eventually creates the change. Similarly, that's what it can teach you with creativity. Exercise can be a metaphor for creativity. We commit to a creative process over time that eventually that creative process starts to yield art or creativity that the world finds valuable, and you can even make a living at your creativity or your art. And the key is to, even though it may have your art or your creativity may generate a lot of revenue and a lot of business, committing that art is at its essence process, and it's really the joy of the process that is the focus of our attention. And we commit to that first and foremost before just producing more outcomes, more creative work that happens to have a monetary value. And then the last subject that I'd like to just cover in this chapter is the building of the artist's altar. And I thought this was a really, really beautiful esoteric practice, and it really has resonated with me over the years that to carve out some space, no matter how small, that is just really yours and dedicated to your creativity, something that inspires you. Could be a windowsill, could be an entire room, but where you place objects on this artist altar that are really inspirational to you, that maybe have some objects that represent past creative projects that still energize you and still bring you to life every time you think about them. It could be symbols of projects you're currently working on that inspire you. I mean, kind of like up here in this bookcase is my artist altar right now, and there's at the very top is the book that I'm planning to write. I'm actually in the middle of writing, and so it represents. I smile every time I see it, and it represents something that's in process for me. Or it could be something that isn't in process yet, but something somewhere you were inspired and you have an object that reminds you of this future creative work or art that you want to bring into reality, but you're not at the planning stage yet. You just want to stay inspired by it, so you can place that on the altar to help to focus your attention and keep stoking the flame of that creativity. So this building of your artist altar can be really, really powerful. And I would say that whatever you decide to put on this altar, the key is that the objects you place on it is that they bring you positive energy, and is that you ask yourself before you put that object on there is, do you love it? I have a friend that is a interior designer and feng shui master, and she talks about often like the key decision on what objects stay and which ones go in our space is really whether or not we love them. If we don't love it anymore, that's usually the first sign that it's time to give it away, recycle it in some way, and make space for something new that we really do love. And I think that's great advice for the building of your artist altar. So that is the overall trajectory of recovering a sense of autonomy, and really a nice deep dive into remembering the basic tools, creative tools of morning pages, artist walks, and artist dates as the basic tools to build our creativity. And I see Slavko is on, so good morning, Slavko. So with that, let's begin our centering practice as we begin to prepare ourselves for our morning meditation. So let's start with a mood check, just recognizing our mood. Maybe even noticing the most dominant sensation in our bodies. And then relaxing our eyes. Soft eyes, so opening up this band right here so you're taking in the whole room, letting go of detail. Relaxing your jaw and relaxing this hinge here, relaxing your chin. Let's bring our shoulders up, clenching our fists and letting that go. And bring our shoulders up. Letting that go. Opening up our chest, so opening here. If you're noticing that you're closing down, you can just open your chest, relaxing your diaphragm. Start to breathe into your belly. And relaxing your pelvic muscles, pelvic floor muscles. You can even contract in, pull that pelvic floor up and in. And let that go. Good, pulling pelvic floor up and in. And then let that go. Begin relaxing your thighs and knees, calves and feet and toes. Just creating internal space. And then let's center in our length here. Let's center from top to bottom, centering in our length. We're both straightening and settling at the same time. We're finding that proper relationship with gravity. And coming into our felt sense of power, our felt sense of dignity. And feel that in our vertical line. And let's center in our width here from left to right. So bringing attention to our commitment to ourselves, to nurturing ourselves, to supporting ourselves. We could say we're supporting our inner creative artist. Feeling our boundaries. And extending out. And start to extend out to someone in your home or nearby. Extending out to something out in nature. The trees, the grasses. Extending out to everybody on this live call or this live post. So I'm imagining Slavko and Darlene in this room, in this circle. And then extending out a little further and bringing someone into this space with your imagination that isn't actually here, but someone who is an ally, a friend, a confidant. Maybe extending out a little further and just including an opponent or an enemy. Extending compassion to those people who you have a hard time with. And what that can do is allow us to let go of our grievances and let go of our anger or hatred, even for just a few minutes. Relaxing our arms down. And let's center in our depth. So we're leaning forward, just feeling into that as our future. And leaning back, imagining as we lean into our back, into our past. And as we lean forward and we imagine the space as our future, this is the space of our visions, our creative visions, our longings, our yearnings, where we're headed. As we lean into our back, we're reminded of where we've been, reminded of our competencies, our talents, our strengths. Reminded of our teachers. Both those temporary teachers that just came into our life and taught us something and then moved on. And then those teachers that initiated us on a formal path. They had something to teach us, and then they stayed with us, or we stayed with them as an ongoing source of learning and growth for a period of time. And let's center ourselves from front to back, finding balance here. And just feel that felt sense of balance here as the felt sense of the present moment. We can feel our past at our back, but we're not living there. It supports us, but we're not living in our past. And we are extending out to a future that we see, that we're called to, that we're inspired to, and we're not living there. We're not hoping that one day we can be happy or peaceful when this future event happens. That vision is a compass. It helps direct our energy and our attention. And at the same time, we're directing all our presence, all our energy, all our attention into this moment, the only moment that ever really is. Invite you to close your eyes and start to enter that inner space of silence, that inner space of freedom. And as you enter there, set your intention. Remind yourself, for the sake of what, that you're doing this practice. Enough. These few words are enough. If not these words, this breath. If not this breath, this sitting here. This opening to the life we have refused again and again. Until now. Until now. enough. These few words are enough. If not these words, this breath. If not this breath, this sitting here. This opening to the life we have refused again and again until now. Until now. And as we close our practice, remind yourself again, for the sake of what? And then very slowly and very gently begin to move your arms and legs. And then very slowly and very gently begin to open your eyes and let the outside world come back in again. And take a moment to notice your mood and if that's shifted since the beginning of our time this morning. Notice the most dominant sensation, if that's shifted since the beginning of our call. And notice the thoughts and images that are flowing through your mind, and becoming aware if that's shifted. So I just want to thank everybody for sharing the time this morning. Darlene and Slavko, and all of you who may experience or share the time on the recording later today. And may we bring our attention to our creative sense of autonomy today, and that we start to build structures in our life that are supportive to our creativity, especially during this time of social distancing where we can kind of create whatever suits us. That's the opportunity. For some of us, there's a tremendous amount of time, and we can create the structure that supports our creativity, whether it's more free-flowing or it's more fixed in terms of when we work and when we play. Remember to bring in those inspiring objects that inspire our creativity and put them in our creative spaces or throughout our home in a way that is intentional and inspires us every time we walk past them. And remember that to do our artist walks, to bring our creativity into action in small ways, so that we are constantly telling ourselves to move our creativity into the physical world, into actually realizing these creations and moving them from our imagination into operation. So blessings on your day, and we'll see you tomorrow at 7 a.m. We'll be covering our very last topic in the Artist's Way book, which is recovering a sense of faith. And we'll start to preview and explore the practices and trajectory of independent will and skillful action, and some thoughts and reflections on that third that third capacity of our human freedom. Again, blessings, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye.